that sense, parang malaking kalokohan yung ano natin, yung budget process, national budget process. Kasi supposedly, we spend the most money when it comes to social services.
Yes.
Education actually number one.
Yeah.
Pero bakit, sa napuputol? Ano yung biggest leakage doon? Is it corruption or...
Corruption
something
in the
else?
sense na saan ba, ano yung pinagkakagastusan once na disaggregate na yung mga budget na yan. Ito kasi tinitingnan ko yung sa health, binudget cut yung Department of Health last year, yung budget natin for health by 40 billion.
Dahil hindi na-spend the previous year?
Hindi, kasi health is a priority, di ba? Kung magkaroon tayo ng pandemic, vaccination.
Kasi ang reason na nilalagay ng iba dyan, sinasabi, hindi mo nagastos last time Kulang ka sa absorptive capacity.
Hindi naman daw may justification yung DBM, nakita ko sa press release nila. Yung overall total budget, hindi naman daw nabawasan. Tinagdagan nila sa medical assistance. So, tinanggal mo sa PhilHealth, nilipat mo sa medical assistance. So, pag tinignan mo yung ballpark figure, wow, ang laki ng budget natin for health. Pag tinignan mo sa institutional arrangement, ay, tinanggal mo dun sa institutional infrastructure na mag-guarantee na may access to health yung mga mahihirap.
Example, PGH, gano'n?
Yung sa indigent.
Indigents, okay.
So, instead na automatic na sana yan kung nasa PhilHealth ka, punta ka muna kay congressman or kay senator. Para hingi ka ng guarantee letter. Diba? I mean, yes, ang laki ng budget natin sa health, but how we implement these programs, ang laki-laki ng issue. Di ba lumabas na rin to yung sa social assistance? Nagbigay sila ng additional budget for social assistance, but is now being used to, ginagamit siyang pang-ayuda, hindi sa low-income household, sa mga kahit may trabaho na ata or mga enterprises dahil kailangan yung boto for People's Initiative. Yung sinasabi na, so what kind of targeting is that? They don't need financial assistance, hindi yan indigent, hindi yan yung mga miserableng mahihirap.
And the concern is, baka mas lumaganap yan approaching the elections. Diba?
Yes.
Kasi kailangan nilang, yung dumikit yung politiko doon sa government service.
Correct. Kaya dapat, alam mo yun, minsan nga yung mga estudyante ko, challenge ko sila sa mga analysis na yan, please post it on social media. Pero naiintindihan ko din naman pag ayaw nila kasi there's really bullying. Yun nga, smart shaming, bullying, and it has impact on mental health of a lot of people. Baka resilient na lang tayo. But at the same time, we need people na titingin magsuscrutinize. Kasi pagka mga general figures lang nakikita natin, okay naman, priority pa rin education, priority pa rin ng health. Pero pag hinimay-himay mo, sino ba yung mga contractor na nakikinabang? Gaano ba kakapal yung mga kalsadang pinagawa dito sa budget? Ilang billion yung inallocate natin siya? Gaano kahaba yung kalsadang nagawa? Diba?
Speaking of kalsada, may nakausap ako isang politiko recently. Napag-usapan namin yan. Sabi ko, di ba pag nagpatayo ka ng kunwari kalsada, meron specifications yan Di ba? On paper. Pero dahil merong SOP, yung contractor, kunwari DPWH, si congressman, pati si mayor, yung 100% budget for that particular road, nababawasan. Siguro natitira daw 40%.
Yeah.
40.
Ganyan din yung nadinig ko.
So, kung ikaw naman yung contractor, pagkakasya mo yung 40% budget, magsasacrifice yung quality. Ang tanong ko sa kanya, teka, di ba supposedly merong yung assessment, yung validate, di ba? Kung madaling mabutas. Meron palang racket. Kausap na nila yung mag-validate, yung titingin lang sila sa specific points ng kalye.
Na compliant. So, may certain area lang na makapal yung bakal, pero sa ibang area, manipis-nipis na yung bakal.
Kaya pag nakita nyo, lumulubog.
Hindi ka ba natatakot kapag ka nagkaroon ng malaking lindol? Imagine mo yung quality ng mga infrastructure sa Pilipinas kung ganyan yung budget.
The big one, yeah.
Diba? Hindi natin naiisip yan. Marirealize na lang natin yan after the fact. Ito nga, nag-TikTok ako sa Baguio. Dami nating budget for disaster preparedness. Pagdating ng La Nina, tama, pagdating na yung bagyo season, papunta na tayo dyan, magsisimula na yung pagbaha, at saka lang natin marirealize, nasa na yung mga flood control program ng gobyerno.
Tama.
We're not prepared.
It's a concrete example of how politics or corruption can kill.
Diba? Marirealize lang natin yun, ay, wala na. Tapos, when this happens to, ito, sino ang mga nakakakuha ng kontrata for quarry? At nakakatawa pa dyan, pag nag-quarry ka, di ba, kinalbo-kalbo mo yung bundok, gumuho yung buhangin, nabarahan yung ilog. Ngayon, si government, kailangan kumontrata ng,
yung dredging.
So, babayaran mo pa yung nag-quarry para i-dredge yung
Salamat po.
Malaking joke eh. Tapos dahil
Gumawa ng problema, imbis na panagutin,
binayaran
mo pa.
mo para i-clear yung ilog. Tapos pag
Congrats.
bumagyo, babahain ka, sira yung private property mo, wala ka namang private insurance, hindi ka na makakompensate.
Pero darating si Mayor.
Nakamayan
si
ka,
Governor.
bigyan ka ng 1 kilong bigas.
Oo.
Picture.
Salamat po. Galing yun.
Diba? Tinatawanan lang natin to, pero it's really, it's frustrating and it's sad. At ayoko naman na mamatay ako na wala man lang tayong naayos. Kasi papamana naman natin sa mga anak natin at saka sa mga apo natin. Ito ba yung lipunan na gusto nating iwan? Diba?
Ang isa kong tanong sa ganyan, basically we're talking of a vicious cycle. No? Usually, kailangan to ng disruption.
Yeah.
Pero what would be a very good starting point?
Alam mo, gusto ko pinag-iisipan ko yung panawagan na dahil reklamo tayo ng reklamo, i-encourage natin yung mga tao na mag-participate. I think we really should start participating. Ito na-inspire ako dito 20 years ago na. Ganun na ba katanda? Sige, mga 10 years ago lang naman. I researched on social movement. Sa Abra to, which is very politically conflicted area. There's this one teacher, si Manang Pura. They formed these concerned citizens of Abra for good governance. Sabanggit ko to sa isang conversation natin. But ang nangyari kasi doon, nag-lobby sila for a bridge sa Abra para mas madali yung kanilang pagtawid, nilalakad. Pero parang kalahati lang yata yung bridge na nagawa. So they really lobbied si President Ramos pa nun eh.
Paano yung kalahati? Lilipad ka na?
Magsasagwan ka na doon sa ilog. Rappel.
Pala yun.
Pero they formed this organization. It's a collaboration of teachers, students, engineers, lawyers, ordinaryong mga tao. And
Ramos, ibig sabihin, 90s to.
90s pa. And they still exist. They measure yung mga kalsada. Kasi kailangan mo na talagang kumilos eh. Ikaw na yung gumawa. Kailangan mong bantayan. Alam mo, the organization experienced harassment, yung mga...
For doing the right thing.
Yes, for doing the right thing.
So what happened?
They're still there and they're still doing it. As hoping na sa kwento kasi ng Pilipinas, we always romanticize best practices, yung mga ganitong aktivismo. Why can't we make it something normal, natural, and common? Diba? Sabi ko nga, kung gusto niyo talaga natin ng pagbabago, kahit PTA, patulan natin yan. Kasi yung PTA, umuupo yan sa local school board at the local level. And the local school board decides on education program for a local government. And I think I'm gonna make it part of what I do sa OGP, Open Government Partnership. And I want to recruit local government, civil society, grassroots. Kasi kung hindi natin gagawin to, then nandiyan pa rin ang mga dinastiya, nandiyan pa rin ang mga oligarchs. So baka nga hindi natin ma-translate into real actions itong mga pinagagagawa natin.
Importante yung participation, no? Kasi you don't have to run for public office to be able to make a difference.
Yeah.
There are many aspects of governance where you can come in.
Alam mo, ang saya-saya ko nung umalis ako sa DOF.
Talaga?
Oo, kasi nung nasa...
Hindi mo na-miss yung tawag sa'yo na USEC?
Hindi.
The trappings of power.
Alam mo, tawag-tawa nga ako dati. Nung naging USEC ako, lagi kasi ako tinatanong ng mga staff nun, ma'am, sinong kasama mo? Hindi, kaya ko naman ako lang mag-isa. So, pumunta ako sa isang government agency. Lapit ako sa guard. Sabi ko, may meeting po ako kay secretary. Gano'n. Sabi ako ng guard, sige ma'am, hintay ka dyan. Hintay naman ako. So, marirealize nila USEC ako. Yung, ma'am, sorry po.
Usually, may garland yun eh.
Oh, sorry po. Okay lang, ganyan. Yung parang, darating ako, may kasama ka ba? Wala, ako lang. Kasi gano'n, sanay ako dun eh.
Hindi ka pwede sa gobyerno talaga.
Hindi
nakalakaran eh.
Diba? Pero,
you're the exception.
Nahirap ako na parang hindi na ako pwedeng magsalita. But after, I could have stayed as USEC. Mag-quiet lang naman ako, diba? Hindi ako mag-criticize. I just continue sitting there. Kung yan yung gustong policy, okay, fine. USEC pa rin ako ngayon.
Pero mahirap matulog sa gabi.
But that's not the reason why I joined government. So, nung paglabas ko, doon ko rin, soon enough after I left, I started my TikTok account, diba? Kasi I realized that my role is outside government, which is what I do even before. Sa mining sector, I used my skills as an economist to engage the industry. As the first to point out na, 30 to 40% lang ang nakuha nating profit sa mining, ha? Is that fair? If I didn't use my skill as an economist, hindi mababroaden yung pinagdidebatihan sa issue ng mining, eh. Environmental, social, big issues. Human rights, big issues. Dagdagan pa natin ang dimension ng economics. And yun yung ginagawa ko dati. And I really missed that nung nasa DOF ako. I thought when I was at the DOF, opportunity, it is good. It's an opportunity to push for good policies. Sabi ko, napakadali din pala actually ng mag-pivot we can make a difference if we have the right people in government. Unfortunately, well, my thinking is not in sync with the one in Malacanang, di ba? Hindi pala parehas yung agenda namin.
With the president.
With the president. Yes, hindi parehas yung thinking, hindi parehas yung agenda. Iba yung interest niya, iba yung iniisip kong para sa bayan. But imagine kung parehas yung iniisip ko, tapos yung presidente, ang daling mag-push ng mga matitinong policies na makakapagkaroon ng significant na change. That's one thing that I learned. Kaya din hindi ako nag-give up, even if it's so frustrating. Yun lang pala eh, if we find the right people in government, pwede.
But you also have to deal with other moving parts in government. Kasi pwedeng within your department, eto yun, solid na kayo. Ito yung dapat gawin. Dadaan ka sa Malacanang. You need legislation, you need to deal with the politicians.
Yun nga. But then again, we have to start somewhere. Diba? So, yung aspect na yun, naging hopeful ako. But then, yung challenge natin is to convince people na ito yung kailangan natin gawin.
Given your experience at DOF, how long did you stay there?
1 year.
1 year. So, would you consider going back to government? Siguro under a different administration.
Nakikita ko rin na it's part of our responsibility. Kung may maitutulong tayo, why not? For me, it's a sacrifice. Masaya kasi ako outside eh. Yung walang constraint, walang limitations. I can do what I want. Nung nasa DOF ako, aga-aga ko pumapasok. Alis ako ng bahay ng 5:30 a.m. Uwi ako ng 9 p.m. Tapos marami pang meeting after that. Nalilimit yung time mo with the family. And then constrained ka pa politically. But outside, ang dami-dami nagagawa. But then, yun nga, sino ka ba para tumanggi na pagsilbihan yung taong bayan? So if you're asked to serve, you serve. And that's part of trabaho sa UP eh. Diba?
Bakit ganun? Nung sinabi mo yan, sincere. Nadidinig ko sa ibang politiko yan eh. Yung call to serve, di ba? Sa kanila hindi convincing. Kasi isang quote na madalas kumadinig sa mga politiko, I hate politics but I love public service. Pero parang hindi halata.
Kasi naman yung public service nila ginagawa ng business. The reason why they serve is because they want to corner businesses, interest. Diba? Sila din naman yung mga nasa ano. But when I served, I had to resign yung mga ginagawa kong trabaho before. And for me, malinaw nga kasi ito yung agenda, ito yung policies na isusulong. Ayusin ko yung mining sector. Gusto ko magkaroon tayo ng bigger share. Yung mga ganun.
Doon sa stint mo sa DOF, although fairly short, no? And well-publicized naman yung reason why you left. Pero did you feel na somehow pag tumagal ka pa dyan, baka naman, yung mabahiran?
Hindi. Kasi malinaw sa akin kung ano yung gusto kong gawin eh. At nag-enjoy din ako doon kasi I realized na maraming credible people in government. Nag-enjoy ako, tapos makulit kasi ako eh. So, halimbawa, yung mga BIR, kinukulit ko sila lagi. O pag may problema dito sa hindi, mag-meeting na tayo, hindi tayo uwi hanggang di natin na-solve yung problema na to. So, alam mo, when I was still there, I worked with the BIR. Concrete example ha, yung mga requirements, medyo technical na to, yung mga requirements to get VAT credit. Napakadami niyan, na mahabang listahan yan. But working together, we were able to rationalize it and reduce it to less than 10.
Na-streamline nyo?
Na-streamline namin yun. At issuance lang yung kailangan gawin. Imagine that. Na parang, kaya naman pala to if we work together.
So it was done?
It was done.
May claim process.
And then, pinush namin yun under the ease of paying taxes. Now, anywhere people can pay tax. Hindi na kailangan pumunta dun sa RDO mo. Sa akin, malinaw. I convinced, I work with the BIR on that. I listened to their concerns, pero pumayag ang BIR. But that means also disrupting the relationship of the taxman and the taxpayer eh. Hindi ka na sa same person lalapit ulit. Pwede ka lumipat ng ibang RDO. Kasi kapag beholden ka sa isang auditor every time, sacrificing sa mga companies eh.
Yes. So.
Diba? Nandiyan na yung mga ibang under the table and all. But kung hindi ka masaya
nakapalagayan kayo ng loob.
Yeah,
madaling kausapin.
Now, we're forced to automate the system, put it online, you can pay taxes anywhere. You make it convenient. Yung mga ganon, na yun yung mga, natuwa ako eh, kasi we work together, various agencies. Pwede, diba?
Madalas i-describe yung Philippines ng Filipinos, we're a third world country. Okay? Iba naman sinasabi, we're developing. Okay? I don't know ano yung basis nila, ano yung datos, ano yung metrics na ginagamit nila, no? So what will be the most appropriate description of where our economy now is?
Well, yung size ng economy natin, size ng investment, quality ng buhay ng mga tao, lagi naman yung bine-benchmark. At saka, ako lagi ko sinasama sa narrative ko yung quality ng institutions natin. Kasi madaling i-benchmark yung mga economy, incidents of poverty, nandyan na rin. Nakikita na natin na pag-iiwanan tayo. And then, madalas kong ginagamit yung worldwide governance indicators sa quality ng institutions and yung trend natin for the past 10 years and how our institutions deteriorated. Kasi ang laki ng impact nun eh.
So what would be an appropriate description of
our institutions? Well, before nag-improve yung perception sa atin ng extent ng corruption sa Pilipinas, medyo lumilis-linis mula noong 2010 hanggang 2015. Beginning 2016, tayo na yung pinaka-corrupt among ASEAN 5.
Bakit kaya?
Tayo yung rule of law, tayo yung pinakamahinang mag-implement mula 2016. Among ASEAN 5.
Parang madiin yung pagkakasabi mo yung
pero data yan, numbers. Papadala ko sa iyo yung graphs para mapakita mo. Sabi ko, napaka-strong ng correlation. Beginning 2016, violence, rule of law, quality of regulation ng government, and corruption.
Totoo yan. Kasi I think early during the Duterte administration, naka-attend ako isang ASEAN Human Rights Forum. And then we were the toast of we had been the toast of the ASEAN when it comes to promoting human rights.
Yes.
Kasi when you talk about the history of the other ASEAN nations, talagang sila matindi, deeply ingrained yung dictatorial roots nila. Tayo rin naman meron, di ba?
Oo.
Pero mas mahaba yun sa kanila. Pero nagulat sila. What happened? Anyari sa inyo?
Diba? Parang tayo dati yung bibo dyan pag pinag-usapan ng human rights, accountability, transparency, dami nating civil society, nangunguna tayo dyan. Again, beginning 2016, nag-deteriorate yan eh.
Pero nakaka-recover na ba tayo?
May improvement in the sense na hindi na ganun karami nakita nating tokhang, diba? Pero nakakatuwa nga itong report ng Civicus as an organization. They monitor yung mga states of human rights in different countries. May recent pronounced report sila about the Philippines. And they said na ang frustration is wala pa ring malinaw na commitment yung administration on what they're gonna do regarding the ICC case ni Duterte. Wala pa ring malinaw na pronouncement yung administration sa pag-reverse ng mga policies ni Duterte empowering police sa pagtunghang. Wala pa ring malinaw na policy regarding red tagging. So for them, while yung mga incidents na bawasan, it will be better if the president will make a very concrete policy statement reversing all this issues related to human rights.
To be more proactive in terms of dealing with this.
Yes.
Hindi pwedeng hayahay lang eh.
At kailangan bukas. At kailangan i-condemn itong mga red tagger na to. Although very good yung recent Supreme Court decision.
Yeah.